You already know something is wrong. You've known for a while, maybe months, maybe years. There's this person in your life, and every time you walk away from them, you feel it, that quiet exhaustion, that low-grade guilt you can't quite explain. That feeling of replaying conversations in your head at 2 a.m., wondering what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. But here's what nobody tells you. Recognizing a toxic person is only 10% of the battle. The other 90? That's what we're covering today, because most advice stops at cut them off or just ignore them. And if it were that simple, you wouldn't still be here. Some of these people are your family, some are your coworkers, some are people you genuinely loved. You can't just delete them like a contact in your phone. Life is messier than that. So let's talk about what actually works, not theory, not generic advice, the real specific field-tested ways to deal with toxic people without losing yourself in the process. First, let's make sure you actually know what you're dealing with. Here's the thing about toxic people. They rarely announce themselves. Nobody walks into your life holding a sign. What they do, instead, is make you responsible for their emotions while making you doubt your own. There are patterns, consistent ones, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. The first pattern is the constant victim loop. Every story they tell ends with them being wronged. Every problem in their life has an external cause: their boss, their ex, the economy, you. They never landed anywhere in that story where they had a role to play. Ever. The second pattern is emotional volatility used as control. Their mood becomes the weather in every room they enter. When they're upset, everyone scrambles. When they're happy, everyone relaxes. You've started unconsciously monitoring their energy the moment you see them. That's not a relationship. That's a hostage negotiation. The third, and this one's subtle, is the moving goalpost. You do what they ask, then the ask changes. You apologize, they add conditions. You meet those conditions, they find a new grievance. You can never quite get it right, because getting it right was never the point. Keeping you trying was. The fourth is manufactured guilt. After everything I've done for you, I guess I'm just not important. Fine, don't worry about me. 4 sentences designed to make you abandon your own needs and come running back. Here's what I want you to understand. These aren't personality quirks. They're patterns. Repeated, consistent, predictable patterns. And patterns can be anticipated. Anticipated means you're no longer caught off guard. Say this with me. Their pattern is not my fault, but it is my responsibility to see it clearly. Because here's where it gets harder. Seeing the pattern is one thing. What do you actually do when you're standing in front of them? Most people think boundaries are about telling someone what they can't do. That's not what a boundary is. A boundary is a decision about what you will do. Full stop. Here's the difference. You can't speak to me that way. That's an attempt to control their behavior. That's not a boundary. That's a request they can ignore. If you speak to me that way, I'll end this conversation. That is a boundary, because it describes your action, something entirely within your control. Toxic people can't respect boundaries they see as negotiable. So the moment you set one and don't follow through, you've just taught them the boundary doesn't exist. Think about it this way. Imagine an electric fence. The first time an animal touches it, it learns. The fence is real. But if the fence only shocks sometimes, the animal keeps testing every single time. You have to be the fence that's always on. This means uncomfortable things. It means leaving the dinner table mid-conversation. It means not answering calls after 9 p.m. It means saying, "I'm not going to discuss this," and then actually not discussing it, even when they push, guilt, cry, or escalate. Because they will escalate. When someone has been getting away with crossing your line for years, the first time you hold it, they'll treat it like a crisis. They'll tell you you've changed. They'll say you're being cold. They'll say you used to be different. You have changed. That's the point. But here's where it gets worse before it gets better. Because boundaries alone won't protect you if you don't know how to actually communicate with a toxic person. You've been told to be honest, to express your feelings, to have open, vulnerable conversations. Stop. That's only half true. And with toxic people, that half can destroy you. Here's what I mean. Emotional honesty assumes the other person is engaging in good faith, that they want to understand you, that your vulnerability will be met with care. They don't. Toxic people use your emotional honesty as ammunition. The thing you shared in a moment of openness becomes the thing they throw back at you 6 months later in an argument. So here are the actual rules for communicating with a toxic person. Rule 1. Keep it short. The longer you explain yourself, the more material you give them to twist. 1 sentence, 2 maximum. I'm not available for that. That doesn't work for me. Not a paragraph, not a justification. A sentence. Rule 2. Stay factual. The moment you say, I feel like you always, they've got you. Now it's about your feelings versus their memory. Stay in observable fact. You called me 4 times in an hour. Not, you made me feel smothered. Rule 3. Never jade. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. The moment you justify your boundary, you've implied it needs justification. It doesn't. You don't owe anyone an essay explaining why you deserve basic respect. Rule 4, and this one changes everything. Stop trying to make them understand. That's the trap most good people fall into. You keep explaining because you genuinely believe that if they just understood how their behavior affects you, they'd stop. They know. Understanding was never the problem. Caring was. Repeat after me. I don't need their understanding to trust my own experience. Now here's the technique that sounds cold, but saves you. It's called gray rocking, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The idea is simple. Toxic people, especially dramatic, manipulative ones, feed on your reaction, your tears, your anger, your frustration, your attempts to explain yourself. That emotional response is what they're there for. It's the fuel. Gray rocking means you become boring. Deliberately, strategically boring. Short answers, flat affect. No emotional hooks. I see. Okay. You're not rude, you're not cold, you're just a gray rock. Nothing interesting to report, nothing to escalate off, nothing to use. Here's what happens. Without emotional fuel, most toxic behavior loses its purpose. The drama dies without an audience. The manipulation has nowhere to attach. They'll often move on to someone who still reacts, because the point was never really about you, it was about the reaction. Now, some people in your life you can gray rock indefinitely. A difficult coworker, a distant relative at holiday dinners. But some people are closer, and with those people the question becomes something more serious. How much contact is actually survivable? Let's be real about something. Just cut them off is the advice that sounds clean and looks good on a quote card. Real life doesn't work that way. Sometimes the toxic person is your mother, your brother, your child's other parent, someone you share a mortgage with. Cutting them off completely isn't always possible, and beating yourself up for not doing it isn't helpful either. So there's a spectrum, and you get to choose where on that spectrum you need to be. Minimum necessary contact means exactly what it says. You're not disappearing from their life entirely, but you're reducing access. Shorter visits, less frequent calls, fewer shared spaces. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. Structured contact means when you do interact, you control the conditions. Public places, time limits, specific topics only. You're not at the mercy of wherever the conversation wanders. And then there's full no contact, which is sometimes the only answer. Not as punishment, not out of anger, but as a quiet, firm act of self-preservation. You don't have to announce it dramatically. You don't owe them a final conversation. You can simply stop and hold that line. Whatever level you choose, the key is that you choose it, consciously, not by default, not out of guilt, but because you decided this is what you need. Here's something I want you to take seriously. Prolonged exposure to toxic people doesn't just hurt emotionally, it rewires you. It makes you hypervigilant. You start reading rooms, monitoring moods, bracing for conflict in situations that are actually safe. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You second-guess your own perceptions. You shrink. And the recovery from that isn't a bubble bath at an early bedtime. It's deliberate, consistent work. It starts with relearning what normal feels like, spending time with people who don't require you to manage their emotions, conversations that don't leave you exhausted, spaces where you're not walking on eggshells. It means rebuilding the habit of trusting yourself. Every time you notice your own discomfort and honor it instead of dismissing it, that's recovery. Every time you catch yourself over-explaining and stop, that's recovery. Every time you feel the pull to smooth over something that genuinely bothered you and instead let it bother you, that's recovery. Small, consistent, every day. You don't have to process this alone. And I want to say that without the usual vagueness, because seek support can feel like empty advice. Here's what it actually means. It means finding one person, just one, who you can be fully honest with. Not someone who'll tell you to just forgive and move on, not someone who's also entangled with the toxic person, someone who can hold what you're telling them without flinching and without immediately fixing it. It means considering therapy, not because something is broken in you, but because untangling the effects of toxic relationships is genuinely complex work. A good therapist doesn't just listen, they help you see the patterns you've absorbed without realizing it, the ways you've started to mirror toxic behavior in self-defense, the wounds that were there before this person ever arrived. And it means allowing yourself to be witnessed, to say out loud, "This happened, this was real, I'm not crazy for being affected by it." That matters more than most people admit. Here's the thing about spending years around toxic people. You can forget what healthy actually feels like. It can start to feel boring, unstimulating, like something's missing. That's not you preferring dysfunction, that's your nervous system recalibrating. Give it time. Healthy relationships feel different. They feel quieter, safer, less electric but more sustaining. Someone who shows up consistently is less exciting than someone who blows hot and cold, but they're infinitely more valuable. Start noticing who you feel better after spending time with, not during, after. Because toxic people can be entertaining, funny, exciting in the moment. The test is how you feel when you're alone again, drained or restored. Build toward restored, deliberately. Invest time in the people who leave you feeling seen without feeling managed. That's your new normal, and it's worth protecting fiercely. This is the hardest part, and I'm not going to soften it. The toxic person in your life is probably not going to change. Not because change is impossible, it isn't, but because change requires someone to genuinely believe they have a problem. And most toxic people don't believe that. They believe the problem is everyone around them. Waiting for them to change keeps you tethered to a version of them that may never exist. It keeps you in the relationship not as it is, but as you hope it could be. And hope, weaponized by a toxic person, is one of the most effective traps there is. Accepting reality doesn't mean giving up on them. It means giving up the fantasy that your love, your patience, your perfect response is going to be the thing that finally fixes them. It's not. That's not your job. It never was. Your job is this: to live your life with clarity, with intention, and with people who actually want to be good to you. That's it. That's the whole assignment. You came into this feeling that low-grade exhaustion, that guilt you couldn't name, that 2 a.m. replay of conversations you didn't start. Now you have something different. You have the pattern recognition to see it early, the boundary language to hold your line, the communication tools to stop giving away your emotional fuel, the permission to limit contact without guilt, the roadmap back to yourself. This isn't about becoming hard. It's not about becoming cold or suspicious or closed off. It's about becoming clear. Clear about what you'll accept, clear about what you won't, clear about the kind of life you're actually building. Because the smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't a single tactic. It's a decision, a daily, quiet, firm decision to stop organizing your life around someone else's chaos. If this helped you, if even one piece of it landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere in your life, there's a person still up at 2 a.m. replaying conversations, and they need to know there's a way through. Like this if it resonated. Subscribe because there's more you need to know, and it only gets more useful from here. The people who drain you are counting on one thing, that you'll keep showing up anyway. Today, you decide whether they're right.